Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Talks with Tania. I'm so happy and excited to see that we've got quite a number of people have joined us today. Welcome to the first Talks of Tania. And my name is Tania Rode, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the founder and director of Workplace Skills Development Partner. It's a consulting firm who specializes in all aspects of skills development. And I'm quite passionate about the upliftment of people, communities, and small businesses. Many of you that know me, I'm constantly talking about how can we create an impact? How can we, have creative skill solutions within the BEE space so that we can really just have an impact on the people that we're supposed to be uplifting. So it's this very passion that has driven me towards setting up this platform. Wanted to engage with specialists in the field of skills development, triple BE, SMEs, and NGOs, who are all specialists in their fields and who play a major role in the upliftment of our economy through the development of our people and communities. And I really just wanted to have some type of platform to showcase the amazing work that a lot of these small NGOs, the entrepreneurs that are out there, SMEs, just to give them a platform to be able to talk about the work that they're doing on the ground. And, I'm often in conversations with people where there's a lot of people that complain about triple BE, but I do think that through this legislation, we can truly make a difference. And it really is just the way that the BE initiatives are set up. And we need to start changing the narrative and start changing the discussions around this and really starting to make sure that whatever initiatives we are putting in place, that it is reaching the communities and it is really uplifting people within South Africa. So today we'll be unpacking how to implement meaningful projects that have a far-reaching impact on all of our communities, and specifically today, youth and women. So I really want people to start thinking about, if there's any companies that's in the room today, please feel free to just pop a message with your name and what business you're in, or if you're in the skills sector, in the BEE sector, NGO or SME sector, or even if you're just an entrepreneur that's joining today. So just pop your name into the chat. How we'll be going through everything today is just chatting to my two honored guests. But we will be taking questions from the participants that have joined us today, and we are also streaming live from YouTube. So I'm going to jump right into it. As mentioned, we are discussing how do we unpack and implement meaningful projects that have a far-reaching impact on communities and youth. How do we make your BEE points count? My first honored guest is Gitmit Lakaba. She is the head of enterprise and supplier development as I am an entrepreneur. Her current role, she leads development and implementation of ESD programs. She has over 15 years of experience in finance, accounting, auditing, tax, SME funding, SME development, business coaching, and SME strategy development. Kito also holds a BCom accounting honors degree with tax specialization from the University of Johannesburg. She also has a BCom accounting degree. Now, Kito is extremely passionate for human development and business development, and she's ensuring that the sustainability of SMEs continue. She's an exceptional leader with charisma and extensive knowledge in her field. She's also the co-founder of Mediwell Medical Center in Dainfern and the founder of Karabo Business Solutions. In addition to that, which I'm also quite interested to hear more about, is she's the founder and chairperson of Goddess Girls, an NGO facilitating girl child mentorship in South Africa. Our second honored guest is Dr. Monica Thach. And Monica holds a doctorate degree in University of Pretoria. Her thesis was around the toy libraries and how that provides play-based learning opportunities for young children. Her passion is creating play-based early learning opportunities for them by promoting toy libraries. She's also the chairperson of the Toy Library Association of South Africa, and on a global stage, she holds the position of vice chairperson and treasurer for the International Toy Library Association. Monica is a firm believer that young children learn best through play. She's an advocate that promotes children's rights to play, as well as a researcher eagerly trying to understand and find ways to improve how adults and children interact in a playful situation. What's exciting is that Monica is constantly innovating and tinkering her toy library model, collecting and using a variety of activities, and passionately works towards creating a toy library qualification in South Africa. So I'd like to welcome Monica and Kitu. Please, if you can turn your cameras on.
Morning, Tania.
Monica, please put your mic on. You're on mute at the moment.
Morning.
Hi, it is such an honor to have you guys present today. I think you are doing phenomenal work in the space that you work in. And just looking at the impact, really, key to the impact that you're having on small businesses, the coaching that you give them, the guidance and advice that you provide to them, just to get them to flourish and to move forward. And Monica, the work that you're doing with kids and women as well, who really are play a vital role, especially in communities and in the ECD centers. So I really just want to get into it and start unpacking and having a great discussion. We will be taking questions as mentioned, so it's not structured. I really want us just to enjoy the moment, and for our participants as well, please feel free to post your questions into the chat. We'll also be taking questions from YouTube. So welcome, and I'm excited to hear you guys.
Thank you.
So we'll go through to just engaging with Kitu first, and from there we'll jump into discussions with Monica. So Kitu,
great stuff.
So Kitu and I know each other for a number of years now. We worked at a company once in our past life, and we gained a lot of knowledge personally in our business careers, and Kitu and I have always remained in contact. And I just want to find out about I'm an Entrepreneur. Tell us some more about I'm an Entrepreneur and the role that you play there from your perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Tania, and welcome to all the guests. Thanks for inviting me here. What an honor to always share in the work that we do and that I do. So I am an entrepreneur. It's a company that started in 2000 and about 7 years ago by a gentleman, Andile Kumalo. And he had the same passion of changing lives and changing the lives of entrepreneurs in South Africa. So he started this company initially through doing summits for entrepreneurs, where he would have workshops and summits where entrepreneurs would come and engage and share challenges, share ideas, share solutions, where eventually the company grew, where more and more people wanted to get help from Andile and the company specifically. So we went into the ESD space, which is what we're going to be discussing now, where we can at least now help SMMEs and entrepreneurs across the country using funds from corporates. So we got into this space where a couple of corporates gave us an opportunity to start implementing and developing the ESD programs for us to be able to help first their entrepreneurs in-house, their suppliers, and other entrepreneurs that were within their communities and the reach of their premises. So that's basically what we do. So our tagline is that we are the fuel that helps entrepreneurs grow and build their businesses. So really what we are trying to do is build as many sustainable, which is a big word, and which is a word I'll use a lot, because we don't want to just build businesses. We want to build sustainable businesses that are going to continue into the foreseeable future and beyond our lifetime.
Fantastic. And that's really why I wanted to have this platform, is to show that yes, BE is there and companies complain because it's such a massive compliance task, but make it meaningful. There's
exactly.
You just mentioned now that how I'm an Entrepreneur started, and that companies then gave their money that falls under enterprise development and supply development and looked at their supply chain and how do we develop that. And I think that's where a lot of companies miss the mark, is that yes, you can comply, but go and look in your supply chain, or actually go and, if you need to find Black suppliers, go out and find them. I'm an Entrepreneur is a fantastic company that you can tap into. They've got a database of SMEs that you can
absolutely waiting to be helped. And it's what we often say is that You know, the ESD element of the BEE scorecard is beyond, we have to do it beyond the points.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can't, you have to see the impact of it. You have to be able to measure the impact of it. And we do it for the impact of what it does. So that's really what we do. So we want to impact the SMMEs in our country. And beyond the SMMEs, you know, impacting one SMME has such an impact on the greater community. So it actually goes beyond the SMME. So in impacting SMMEs and building SMMEs, we're building communities.
Yes.
Which essentially builds our country.
And that's the narrative that we need to change. It's not that you're just putting money towards scoring the points. It's
Absolutely.
the impact. And we really need to start showing companies the impact, because I think there's, you know, yes, there's so many BE consulting companies out there there's a lot of phenomenal ones who show that strategy to companies, and companies
Absolutely.
they can build 3 to 4 year strategies in just looking at the development of their supply chain, and also looking at bringing on new entrepreneurs and new SMEs and giving them the opportunity. You know,
Absolutely.
and I must say, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got my business only for 6 years now. And it's challenging, you know, you push through this. We as entrepreneurs have so many challenges. There's so many ups, there's so many downs. But I think when you find your purpose as an entrepreneur, and you understand the work that you're doing is much bigger than you, then I think that's when you're in your space and you're able to just push ahead. But we definitely need organizations like I'm an Entrepreneur to get us access into market and to just help us get that, you know, more clients coming in. And also I'm Entrepreneur shows companies how can you make it impactful. And so Kitu, today I want to unpack enterprise and supply development and socioeconomic development individually. And I tell you why, because, you know, this is a conversation I have all the time, is that BE was put in place to help Black businesses, to empower Black businesses. But the problem is that
and beyond that, Tanya, beyond that, you know, I think a lot of people, you when you say BE was in place to empower Black businesses, but it has to go beyond that. It's to build economic transformation. It's the competitive markets. It's to help Black businesses enter into competitive markets, in whatever industry that they're doing. And also the biggest thing about the whole BE is creating jobs and building communities.
Yes.
So when you leave it at that one line, you know, people then become a little bit edgy about it, but it's beyond just impacting Black businesses.
Yes, and I mean, later on when we get to Monica's presentation, we'll see the major impact that her organization is having on communities. So let's jump into it. What is supplier development?
So I'm almost going to mix. I'll get into an overview of what is supply and enterprise development, and then we'll break it down from there.
Okay.
So for people that don't know, right, in the BEE scorecard, there's 5 elements that earn corporate points, BEE points. So one of the elements that can earn a corporate points on the BEE scorecard is enterprise and supply development. And that is specifically allocated for corporates to spend some of their profits, a percentage of their profits, in building and helping and impacting SMMEs. So these are guys that are below 50 million turnover.
Okay.
So then the enterprise and supply development is split into 2. It's split into supply development and enterprise development. The supplier development means that a corporate is supporting an entity that is already on their supply chain and they're already procuring from them.
Right.
So if I, Kitu Co, or I am an entrepreneur, is buying stationery from Tanya, you're already my supplier. So in any work that I do for you, or in any impact work that I do for you, it will fall under supplier development.
Okay. And I think that's an important point. I just want to stop there, Kitu. In 2016, I had one of my clients who was going through BE and through implementation of all of their strategy. And I had a very strange question posed to me. And at that time, I wasn't really that into the triple B space. I was more focusing just on skills development. And one of my clients approached me and said to me, do you have any challenges in terms of running your business? And I said to them, what do you mean? And they said, well, we'd like to support you in either a financial way or with business coaching. And I said to them, look, business coaching is a bit tricky for me. I would absolutely love it, but I don't have the time to take out to go and sit with a business coach, because being an entrepreneur, you're constantly moving at a fast pace. And they said to me, well, just list all of your expenses that you have in your business. And I listed the expenses, and they actually, and this was at the end of the year, so it was round about November. As you know, many companies have their financial year in December, so it gets manic. And I gave that through to them, and I was so overwhelmed with the generosity. They came back and they said, we would like to refund you your entire operational costs for that year.
Sure.
And I couldn't believe this. Like, I actually thought there must be some type of catch. And I think that's where, we need to educate entrepreneurs and educate the Black businesses out there about triple BEE. I had another client in 2017 who I actually, 2018, who I actually approached and said, listen, I would love to do this particular course. Would you be able to assist me? And they were so delighted with the fact that I asked them that. I was already supplying a service to them. And they said to me, because and I said, but you have many other small businesses that are providing a service. Why don't you check with them if you can assist them? And they said to me, we a bit scared to ask them, because we feel like it's a charity case. Like, they're going to think we're looking at them like it's a charity case.
Like it's a charity. And that's why, absolutely. And I think that's why companies like I'm an Entrepreneur exist. So we are also the middleman between the corporates and the SMMEs, where the corporate is too scared to go approach the SMME themselves, or the SMME is too scared to approach the corporate themselves. So we are the middleman that makes sure that the facilitation of development happens between the corporate and the SMME.
Yes, and it's so important. I mean, my organization also bridges that gap, even though we specifically focus on skills. But we place learners who companies have to pay for learnerships, and we and they can't host those learners in-house. We actually go to small Black businesses and place these learners in small businesses. The small business doesn't have to pay a salary for the 12 months, but they get an extra set of hands, and hopefully they can grow from having that extra set of hands.
So that they definitely need.
Supply development is definitely something that businesses should look into, as well as the small entrepreneurs out there that are struggling.
I always tell the entrepreneurs, you have to do the research and find out what supply development initiatives your customers have to be able to tap into it.
Exactly. And it's just building that confidence to take that approach and engage on that level with your client.
Absolutely.
Okay, on to enterprise development.
So enterprise development is when a corporate sponsors an SMME that is not particularly connected to the supply chain. So it's an SMME that it doesn't have to be in the same industry. It doesn't have to be on their database. So it's really supporting an SMME outside of your supply chain and outside of your value chain. So why would corporates do this? So corporates would be helping SMMEs to either eventually come onto the supply chain, build them and grow them to eventually be able to supply to big corporates, or they actually just want to help and assist the specific community that they operate in. I mean, this is also very big. Also in the mining communities is a big. That is probably one of the examples that I would make. So in the mining communities, not every business around there is particularly connected to the mine or supplying the mine, but the mine would choose to support enterprises that are not connected to them, that are in that specific community, to grow and build the specific community.
And it's, and again, entrepreneurs and small Black businesses need to understand that you can actually, I've told so many other businesses that don't be afraid, just Go put a little, even if it's an email, put the email together with what you require financial assistance with, and send it out to many companies that you are not currently doing work with, and highlight that it is for enterprise. You want to be an enterprise development beneficiary. And
Exactly,
what's the worst that
exactly.
can happen? Is
The
someone will
worst that can
say,
happen is
sorry, we've already
no.
spent.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
we've
So you
already
have
spent our
to.
money. Yeah, and don't become despondent if you get a lot of no's. Just push on and continue to ask, because you never know when that door is going to open.
Eventually, it'll be a yes.
Yes.
Eventually, it'll be a yes.
Okay. And socioeconomic development.
So socioeconomic development, this is more supporting of what is traditionally known as charity functions or charity works. So here we would support, charity initiatives, whether it is in education, in whatever particular sector that the corporate would choose to support. So they would particularly support communities, but has nothing to do with SME development or business development. It's really from a community and community development and from a human development perspective.
Mm.
And this is
Okay.
where, if they need budgets to build schools, Monica's
Yes.
projects with the kids, and all of those Mandela Day projects, all of those projects that the companies are doing in that space would come out of the socio-economic development budget, because that also has its own budget of spend.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on one thing. So there's also no double dipping, if we can just put that forward, in the sense that if there is a small business that is getting funding for socioeconomic development, and that funding that the entity is giving them is for operations maybe to run for the next 6 months, they cannot then give that as enterprise development. Am I correct? Because then it's seen as double dipping if you're paying to the same company.
The thing is,
Or am
Tania,
I incorrect?
the companies, you would have to be very clear in terms of what company you are running. So if you are running a profitable business and you are raising funds to be able to grow your business and grow your profits and grow your turnover and grow your revenues, the amounts would probably come out of enterprise and supply development, because then we are doing SME development. Socioeconomic development is not for profit. So where there's a profit motive,
right,
then you fall into enterprise and supply development, because that is purely to build and grow SMMEs. And we want you to grow because we want you to grow your revenues, grow your business operations so that you can grow your jobs, employ people. But when you are a social enterprise, where you are not running your enterprise or you are not running your business for profits, then we would fund you under the socioeconomic development, because there is no profit motive there. You are doing it for community or people development. And that is where the differentiator comes from.
Yeah.
Now I was saying, and that is where the
socioeconomic
differentiator.
development side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So under socioeconomic development, what is the criteria? Is there a set criteria that you can fall under socioeconomic development for a specific project? Must that project be for the benefit of the greater community?
It has to be. It has to be. It even says it in its name. It's for social economic development. So it's for the social development. You'll see a lot of people or a lot of companies would spend their money on education here. The NPC schools that are non-profit organizations, because a lot of our public schools, especially, they're not built for a profit motive.
Yeah.
And a lot of our organizations and a lot of organizations involved in child development, early child development, mental health, and those initiatives that are being done are not built for a profit motive, but more built to develop the economy and develop the social part of our economy.
Okay, got you. So for everyone that's joined us, just bear in mind that socioeconomic development is specifically geared towards the bigger picture, benefiting communities, not only your business as it stands. Enterprise development is for purely specifically on developing your business and scaling your business. If there's any
Absolutely.
financial challenges you're struggling with, it would then fall under enterprise development or supply development if it is a client of yours already. So we have one question
Absolutely.
from Berna. Where would
Uh-huh.
social enterprises for profit have the best fit? So meaning if it is a social enterprise, but they are for profit, would it be enterprise development partnerships with a partner in our industry, or where exactly would they fit in if they are for profit? But, and I
So
think sorry, so
yeah,
I do actually know Verna, and Verna has a company where she trains, she gives an opportunity to young women, teaching
yeah.
them and giving them skills in the beauty industry. So
Okay.
nail technician. So she does
Oh,
that type of
nice.
training. And, so in terms of her, so yes, it is something in the social space because she's giving opportunities and developing these young women. But on the other hand, she is a profit business.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tanya, with social enterprises, it becomes a very tricky line here. But
Mm.
from my experiences and from the from the work that I would do, with an enterprise and supply development budget, that budget would work at supplementing what Verna is doing in her business to build the students that she's teaching.
Mm.
So if all the students have now built their own businesses and they're being trained at it, personally and from the work that I would do, if I had to fund, then I would fund where the funding would come from for me is enterprise and supply development in making sure that each student has its own business and enough capital to start their own nail and beauty business, whether it is starting them in a rented room with their own equipment and buying stock for them and setting them up for business. That is where the money would then come in.
Right. Okay. So just on her one, if and I'm going to paint a picture that could be a possibility for
Yeah.
her company, is that yes, she's a small training organization that is helping these women in the beauty industry. But
Mm-hmm.
if her business is struggling, and let's say because a lot of things are online now, maybe she
Yeah.
needs equipment. Under enterprise development, she could approach another company to possibly get funding to assist her in purchasing equipment so that she can run effectively. But then she can also approach a business for socioeconomic development where they could then assist in setting up these young girls' businesses, as you mentioned. So you can tap into both sides. And
I
I
think
think
she
also,
would probably even need to, in her personal capacity, she would probably need to tap into the socio-economic development because then she can get money for the training and to build up the training from an educational perspective. But from the small businesses that she's training, particularly, they would then need probably come under enterprise and supply development, where we set them up to be sustainable businesses in wherever they're operating from.
right. So, Verna, Kito's details will be up later, and you are more than welcome to get in contact with her. As you can see, some of these do become complex, especially when you really need to think about the entire strategy. Everyone's is unique. And, I mean, I can throw a spanner in the works and say that you can also tap into skills development. If any of your programs are accredited, you can have a company sponsor a number of those young ladies on an accredited program, and they can claim that under skills development.
And that's
So
it.
it does become complex, and I do think engaging with Keto at I'm an Entrepreneur, this is what she does. So it would be fantastic, Berna, if you
Absolutely.
can reach out to her at the end, and we'll share the contact details.
Sure.
Okay, so Keto, we will jump into the scorecard, the
Yeah.
lovely scorecard. So if we're looking at the supplier development, enterprise development, and the bonus points,
Yeah.
walk us through how the point system works. And this is geared more towards companies that are online with us and who are unsure about how do they actually get points and what is the percentage. How does this calculation work?
Okay. So before we even get into the scorecard, the
Mhm.
scorecard is particularly for enterprises making over 50 million Rand a year.
Okay,
So
very important
this
point.
So this particular scorecard is not applicable to SMMEs because SMMEs in calculating their BE points or in verifying BE status, you only need to do that BE affidavit, or you get your BE certificate from CRPC, or you do the affidavit either through an accountant, lawyer, or you get it signed at the police, or you get it certified at the police station.
Okay.
This specific scorecard, like I said in the beginning, with the 5 elements of calculating BE points, for big companies that are making over 50 million rand per annum, then they would use this specific scorecard to calculate their points. So from a supply and enterprise development perspective, they need to spend 3% of net profit after tax,
okay,
in developing SMMEs in whatever methods that they choose, because there's different ways in which different corporates choose to support SMMEs. It's either through funding, through training, through coaching, whatever program that they implement is what they spend on. So from a supplier development perspective, if you had net profit after tax of 10 Rand, right? So already the 3% of the 10 Rand, which would be what, 3 cents? 3 cents would be what you would then spend on SMME development. So out of that 3 cents, 2% of that, or from the let's just use the 10 Rand, from the 10 Rand, 2% would go to supply development, 1% would go to enterprise development. So from the 3% that is required to spend, you spend 2% on supply development, 1% on enterprise development. So 2% you must spend on people that you're already procuring from and people that are on your procurement list. And why they made this very high is because, one of the biggest things of BE is and enterprise and supply development is for competitive markets, to help Black businesses enter competitive markets. So what was happening in the past is that a lot of corporates had Black suppliers doing, the minimal things in corporate stationery and toilet paper, cleaning, whatever. So this spend is to help Black businesses get into markets that they would normally or originally not enter into, because they would not ordinarily have the resource to be able to do it.
Okay.
So that supply development, then they would use that 2% to help enterprises do that. So you get the full points if you spend the full amount that's allocated.
Okay, and with that, a company can also spread that amount. So let's just say, for argument's sake, it is 300,000 Rand that they've got to spend under supply development. They don't only have to push that into one business. They can spread it across a number of businesses.
They can spread it across a number of businesses. I mean, you can imagine a big corporate like a Coca-Cola has like millions and millions of suppliers. So whatever budgets that they would have, they would want to split it in such a way that you're really, really creating economic transformation across the supply chain, and you're really helping as many SMMEs as you can in the process. Awesome. And similarly, also with the enterprise development, you would then also required to spend the 1% of the amount that's allocated, and you would get the full points if you spend full amount. If you don't spend the full amount, then your points are portioned to the percentage that you spend.
Okay. And the bonus
then
points?
You don't get the full bonus points. So the bonus points, the first bonus point is where you graduate an enterprise, an SMME coming out of enterprise development. Remember, this is an SMME that had nothing to do with your supply chain, not affiliated to your company. But after you've now spent on this specific SMME, they were big enough or grew to be able to supply you with something.
Yes.
So now they've moved from enterprise development to supply development.
Becoming a supplier. So they've now become part of the supply chain where they had never been part of the supply chain.
Absolutely.
And that point is automatic. How does the company evaluate that? How does the verification agents pick up that you've progressed this person from an enterprise beneficiary to a supplier beneficiary?
It's through audits. So every year, what happens is when you are running enterprise and supply development programs, one of the biggest things on these programs is reporting. So they report. That's why it's so important to have companies that facilitate and do your enterprise and supply development. Like I'm an entrepreneur, because as and when we run our programs, we facilitate and monitor everyone that has benefited from the program. Because also the biggest thing about impact is that you have to be able to measure it. So
Yes.
if I give you the funding and then let you go, I don't know what's happened to that funding. All I know, your business closed in 6 months after I've given you the funding, which defeats the purpose of me giving you the funding. So this is why there's something that we call in this space post-investment or post-development management. Post-investment management. So once we have spent on you, we want to track you and we want to see how you're doing, because we actually want to see you succeed, because that's why we gave you the money to you, for you to become sustainable. So after the year or 2 years that you've been with us, we want to track where is your business now, how many jobs are you creating, what are your challenges. And that's why programs are so important, that the tracking is so important, because then you can also it's where you'll really be able to identify gaps.
Yeah.
We can quickly deal with the gaps and quickly put in place interventions to deal with whatever gaps are there in the businesses. So this is done through tracking and audits throughout the year. So any program, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the important points you touch on there, which I don't see happening often enough, is the tracking. So, the research, you've given this company money. Next year, don't just give them more money or decide you're not going to give this small business money, you're going to give someone else money. There's no sustainability there. And also you're not going back and looking at the value that you actually have contributed for that, to obtain that bonus point, for example.
Exactly.
So very important
point. And it has to, and that's why I think in the country, if you really look at it, we don't have proper stats on SMME development in the country, and the impact that ESD has had across the nation. So the impact and the tracking and the monitoring and evaluation of it is such a big thing.
Yeah, I think we do need to look more into that and having companies come in and conduct that research.
It's such a big thing.
And the bonus point for creating more jobs?
And the bonus point for creating more jobs. So you get bonus points for job creation. Because like I said in the beginning, job creation becomes the biggest thing, because creating one job feeds about 10 mouths, they say.
Yeah. Yes.
So you get the bonus point really for job creation and for creating jobs in the entities as a result of the development that you have given them, and as a result of the support that you have given them.
And do they get 1 point for one job created, or is it just 1 point irrespective of the number of jobs they've created?
I think it's 1 point per 3 jobs. I was just checked properly, but it's not per job created. There's a linear thing, because also the bonus points are capped. Because remember, the maximum points you can get on BE is 100 plus the bonus points. So they have to cap the bonus points, because then otherwise people will fictitiously create jobs.
Yes.
Get maximum points on this.
And then just to finish off here, we've just, before we go on to the socioeconomic development scorecard, one example just to show how simple it can be to put something together like this. I have a massive client who is in the temporary placement services. And with their YES program, they implemented the YES program, which gives opportunities to unemployed youth. And they couldn't house these learners within the organization. So I went out and found one small Black business that's in the arts and entertainment industry. And we placed two learners there, 2 YES learners. And that was during COVID last year when it was the lockdown. And that helped them tremendously, because of the fact that this small business, actually, it's arts and entertainment. They weren't getting any money that was coming in. So they actually had to retrench their 2 permanent employees. And luckily, they had the other 2 YES learners. When we got closer to the end of the year, I said to the big entity, I said to them, why don't you donate money under, or give them financial assistance under enterprise development and help them? And they gave them about 30,000 just to assist them with operations. And in January, I went back to them and I said, you're almost close to your financial year end. Why don't we progress them to a supplier development? And they said, a supplier developer. And they said, how would we do that? And I said, because she's actually has a training center that is accredited. Yes, it's in the entertainment space, but we are working in a digital world now, and your managers need to know how to be effective online.
Absolutely.
And so we brought her in, and she did a 4-hour course, which progressed her to becoming a supplier. And then under supplier development, they gave her another donation, which assisted in bringing another permanent person in.
Oh,
and that
nice.
created a job. So, it's such a simple model, but it can really be effective. And that company is flying now. They've just moved into new premises. So it's really look at the impact. Always look at the impact that your BEE points can attain.
Have to look at the impacts.
Okay, last one, socioeconomic development. How do they get these 5 points?
And also in socioeconomic development, they have their own budgets. So they need to spend 1% of net profit after tax. So if they are on 10 Rand net profit after tax, their expenditure would be 1 cent. And they will get the full points if they spend the full budget of socioeconomic development budget.
And again, they don't have to spend it on one organization.
No, not at all. The more the merrier. And also, I guess it also depends on, the budget of the net profit after tax. And the needs of the SMMEs on your pipeline. But the more the merrier. You can spend on multiple SMMEs.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Kitu.
Thank you so much. I saw one question about grant money. Sorry, I just want to answer that before I go.
Yes.
There are definitely companies that give ED grants. Very fine few between. But they are, like I said, the funding of enterprise and supply development comes in 3 ways: grants, loans, and equity. And generally, the loans are much cheaper than the bank loans because it's a development loan. So then it would probably come at like a prime -5, or even I worked at a company that were giving 0% loans previously to SMMEs. So there are definitely ED companies that are do ED development, and they do give grants. I just wanted to answer that one before we go.
Okay, there are a couple of more questions, but I think what we'll do is we'll leave that for at the end of Monica's presentation, and we'll come back to that. Thank you, Kitu.
Perfect. All right, pleasure.
Thanks. Monica.
Yes, already.
Welcome, Monica. I am excited to get into this discussion as well. So, the importance of ECD. But before we jump into that, I also would like you just to give some background information on Kotlins. Kotlins has been around for many, many, many years. And so I'd like you just to give an introduction as to who is Kotlins, because there are still some people out there that have not heard of Kotlins before. And I'd like you also to give an intro as to who is Kotlins Ignite and on toy libraries as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So yes, Kotlins has been around for 85 years. And I was so enthused, Kitu, by your presentation when you mentioned Triple BE is all about developing human potential and also building communities, because that's at the heart of what Kotlins do. So we really believe that we ignite children's potential, and we do that through our playgroups and toy libraries, but then also capacitating the adults who work with young children. And so Kotlins Ignite is a sub-brand of Kotlins, and it's our accredited training arm, where we then capacitate and provide the required qualifications to people working with young children in the early childhood development sector.
So that's a training center. Kotlins Ignite is a training academy.
Yes, you could call it that. Yes, it's a subsidiary of Kotlins, and really one of our latest flagship programs that we launched in 2019 and have taken on the first cohort of learners. And most of these are women who are entrepreneurs and who have started up their own businesses in the form of early childhood development centers or toy libraries or playgroup programs.
Wow, that's so you And it's e-learning, you said. You said it's online, the Kotlin's Ignite.
Online learning, so we're really pushing the boundaries also in the space of early childhood and how training is being provided. And for many of the ladies that come on board, and also some gents, handling a laptop, having an email address is a very daunting experience. And so we're very proud of also how we're closing that digital divide at the same time.
That's fantastic. So that was pre-COVID, that was pre-lockdown.
Yes, we launched it. Yeah, we launched it in 2019. Started with the conceptualization and the first writing of materials and qualifications in 2019, and the first cohort that intake was in July, in the midst of COVID-19.
Wow. Well, that was quite forward thinking there. You must have had some sort of foresight into seeing that, everything is going to just be catapulted into the digital space. So I think you're positioned very well there, with regards to the online learning. And the toy library?
So toy libraries, my personal passion in life. So toy libraries is a room filled with toys, and it plays a really important function within the early childhood development sector. So it provides play materials, training, and also support to anybody that is involved in the world of and the lives of children, and really make sure that play-based learning happens. And so those of you that may be parents that are on the webinar today, it really gives you opportunity to access play materials that are age appropriate, and you can keep exchanging those, and so it minimizes the impact on the environment, by always buying new toys. And so wonderful way. And we also are seeing how through our training, we are helping people to actually set up this as a new venture. So we really also see this as enterprises that are being set up.
That sounds fantastic. I really just want to jump into it and let's get more information about this, Monica. This platform is for you to showcase everything that you guys are doing. So take us through the investment in the future workforce.
Sure. So really, if we start talking about early childhood development, you can't not think about the future workforce of South Africa. So child development from between the ages of birth to 9 is really critical. It lays the foundation for all future learning, and it really is the optimum period to be unearthing human potential. And so it really starts by investing in the very young and from birth. And we often find that when people look at BBBE, the ECD sector is ignored. And I find that quite bewildering, because if you're thinking about the impact that scaling access to quality ECD programs will have, is that it unlocks pathways out of poverty. It builds employment and productivity and levels up developmental outcomes for children. And so for me, we have to help the country also reach its universal access goals. So it is a top priority. The president spoke about it in Isona, and we know that there's 1 million children in our country that are currently not accessing any form of early childhood programming. And this is very detrimental when we talk about school readiness and success of entering into school and learning to read and write. And so for us, there's a direct link to the poor matric results.
Yes.
So we also, universal access means we need an investment of about 34 billion rand into early childhood if we want to give access to those 1 million children. And to do that, there's a shortage of at least 350,000 qualified ECT practitioners. And this skills gap, this workforce gap, is what prompted Kotlin's to set up Kotlin's Ignite, to do the online training, because we will never reach that number of people through a face-to-face approach in terms of training.
And I think it's really, in our country, we constantly, in the education space and the skills development space, there's a lot of focus on your post-school education and not really on the actual schooling, and not just high school, but at the ECD level. And exactly what the point you touched on is that why are we having, issues with learners dropping out when they get to primary school or dropping out when they get to high school? Yes, we are faced with many social challenges in the country. But if we do, get ECD practitioners qualified, and out there and building these toy libraries and building these ECD centers and just giving the development to kids. I think the kids are our future. They in 30 years time, these are going to be the kids that are going to be in the workforce. So if we're not investing in them now, where are we going to be in 30 years time when these kids have to enter into the workforce? Are we going to sit with a major issue on our hands where these kids have no education and they can't even access the post-schooling education? So I think that the ECD is vitally important, and we have to start voicing the concerns and the issues around the lack of development and the lack of focus on the ECD side.
And the lack of investment. And so my last comment on this is really just, for every R1 that we invest and we can channel triple BE and the various categories of funding that's available into the ECD sector, there's a 10-fold return, not just for this individual, not just for this child, but also for society. Someone that has a really solid foundation in early childhood is more likely to be employed, more likely to complete high school, more likely to enter into postgraduate and completion of that, and less likely to be part of criminal activities, have fewer mental health difficulties and so on. So for me, investing in that very first few years of a child's life is critical. It's really sad when we look at the budget figures that have been released. So our country spends 500 Rand a year on early childhood development and 22,000 Rand a year on higher education.
It's
the disparity. It's just not acceptable, and so we need to all advocate and work in this space to get that investment into early childhood development.
Wow, I mean, that's really shocking stats, and it just shows the major challenges in this space, and that we really need to look at pushing more funding towards the early childhood development.
And when we think about those the million children, we're already sitting on 11 million unemployment in our country. So are we just going to keep adding 1 million children every year, who grow into adults that are not employable because they don't have, they're not functionally literate, numerate, really important.
Yes. So in terms of Scotland's Ignite, you've got 2 programs. Tell us about these programs. And I just want to note they are accredited programs. So under triple BE, in order for an organization to score points on triple BE and the spend that they incur, they can only claim 100% of the spend if it is on an accredited program. It's normally capped at 25% of the total cost if it is an unaccredited program. So the most exciting thing here is that your programs are accredited. Tell us more about those.
Yes, so we're also a little bit ahead of the curve. So currently qualifications being offered to early childhood development practitioners sit within the ETDP CETA, but a new qualification has been scoped to the occupational certificate for early childhood development practitioners. It's on a level 4. So we're rather excited at the prospects of how people could also be obtaining a vocational matric and then starting up their own early childhood development program. And that could be an ECD center, a toy library, a playgroup program, a home visiting program. And so that's the minimum requirement in order to work and operate within the early childhood development sector. It takes 12 to 18 months, and we currently have 35 enrolled learners. And then our second program that we offer that's also accredited with the services CETA is a toy library skills program. It's called and so we've used some of the new venture creation unit standards. It takes about 8 months to complete, and we've enrolled 33 learners. And for this new venture creation, it's really about building a cadre of qualified toy librarians across the country. And very proud to have launched this and have learned such a lot in this journey.
Let's jump into, just understanding how you roll these programs out and what is the support that's given to the learners?
So we all know that online learning also comes with some of really critical aspects that need to be built into the learner journey. And one of those is that you have a mentor, that at the other end of the screen, there's a warm body who takes your learning journey really seriously, who onboards you, because as I've mentioned before, the digital divide, the fear of of will I be able to manage, my own learning online? And so she does not facilitate the content. She creates an enabling environment. She onboards the learners. She tracks the learners' progress. So if there's been a delay, haven't been online, haven't progressed as expected, she would make a call, set up a meeting, and try and infuse and support the learner to continue. We've also built into the learning journey opportunities for contact sessions. So there's very big practical and workplace component. And so we need to do workplace verification, signing off of logbooks and so on. So that's also built into this supportive role of the mentor. And then also, when learners join us, we will do the Honey and Mumford learning styles assessment so that the mentor understands the preference and the preferred learning style and can better facilitate this support. And then also, obviously, there's quite a bit of administrative tasks that need to be completed in order to upload learners onto the relevant databases, and then also prepares them for the external integrated summative assessment, which is very new to the sector. In the ECT, it's portfolio-based work, and all of a sudden, in QCTO, it's exam writing. And so she also will prepare the learners then for that external exam at the end, after they've completed their knowledge, practical, and workplace modules.
Okay, and how has it been, through this journey of launching this phenomenal program? What has the journey of the learner been, especially seeing that it's online? A lot of especially if you look at the rural communities and having to now be in a digital world. How have you managed to move them, progress them from face to face to being online? And what has that experience been from the learner side?
So some of the comments and remarks that we've seen that we're getting is really being very encouraging. And we see the flurry and the difficulty sitting in the onboarding process. And so we invest quite a bit of time, and even to the level and to the degree of this is where you switch on the tablet. And one step, before that is making sure that we put a tablet and data in the hands of the learners. We really wanted to remove all possible obstacles. And so giving them that enables them to then go through the onboarding. But once they're on the platform is very intuitive, it's very engaging, it's interesting it's not just, a PowerPoint that kind of, floats by. We've really used all of the artifacts that a person can to hold attention and keep the learners engaged. And we find that once they've gone through the first few sessions, that it's a very seamless process. So we've recently done a survey, and the feedback that we had received is not at all related to the digital aspects. People seem to have navigated that really well. A few recommendations, which we very gladly are putting back into our program development.
Okay, and I think that's why also you mentioned it's important that it's not a facilitator, it's a mentor. So it's someone that is there to provide that support, because it can be very nerve-wracking and challenging when you've never worked on a tablet before, but you have the mentors in place and they are able to provide that support to them.
And I think alongside, also having a community of learning, which is a WhatsApp group, so where they could be checking in with each other, encouraging each other. And really for us, our heart is in the practical. It's in how this training translates back, once they are with the children. And the candidates all are already in practice. So they are with groups of children, they are working with children. And that's where the community development really comes in for us as we affect these substantive changes and long-lasting changes in the current workspace of this practitioner. And so really excited because the quality of early learning programs and ECD programs really is a concern in the country, and we see this also as an opportunity to improve that quality as the learner journeys and as the knowledge grows, as the practical experience grows. She will create a workplace that is also of high quality. So I think that's an added benefit.
And I think what's really good is that your learners enrolling on these programs, they actually can gain the practical experience within the ECD centers and be in touch with the communities, and really see the value of their work and the value of their qualification, and certificate that they've obtained through Cotland's Ignite.
Absolutely. And to get to those million children, you need 350,000 practitioners that are equipped and who could set up these programs. And so it's really quite an exciting endeavor to be part of.
It really sounds phenomenal. What are the 3 lessons that you've learned through this journey?
Well, definitely, initially we started off, having a platform where the content was kept, and then they needed to kind of create some of the evidence by going to another platform, and we realized keep it simple, make sure everything is easily accessible. So there was a lot of iterations in that regard. We learned the value of having the mentors, and it was also, we did extensive research before embarking on this journey, specifically working with the university in a huge online university in the States, who really guided us through what are the essential things to build into the learner journey. And one of those is the role of the mentor. And so really we seem to be seeing the fruits of that. And then also the workplace support. So ECD is a little bit different from the other occupational qualifications. So we don't have a simulation center. The nature of the business is just such that we can't bring a number of children into a space to simulate the workplace. And so there's a lot of effort and time that goes into also helping the workplace supervisor ensure that the learner is not gardening, but that they are in fact, interacting with the children and getting the hours required in terms of workplace experience, and then also making sure that they understand their role as a workplace supervisor in terms of signing off logbooks and the required administrative tasks. And we've seen the need, and that's forward looking, that we need to also do a real good workplace onboarding session and invest time in that, because then the end result should be better. So those are our top 3 lessons.
And I think just looking at this and listening to the journey, I think the way you've built and designed this model is really, it takes the learner from the point of understanding that, this is the career that I want to go into, or the opportunities that are out there, starting up my own ECD center and going through the qualification with Cotland's Ignite. You've been working with kids for so many years already, 85 years. And then having the opportunity to actually practically embed their knowledge and the experience that they've gained. And at the same time, they can immediately see the impact that it's having on these kids and in the community at large. So it's really, really great work. The toy library is a very interesting concept. You've mentioned before the toy librarian, which is also a very new term. I don't think people really are aware of this term. Tell us more about the toy library.
So the toy library forms part of the suite of ECD programs that exist in South Africa. So there's an ECD policy, and it's in order to reach this million children, we need all kinds of ECD services. One of which is an ECD center, the other is a play group, and then toy libraries form part of the service offering that we could put into communities. And so a toy librarian is an ECD practitioner that has specialized in working in a toy library, and therefore she needs a unique qualification that will enable her to be a really good toy librarian. And the objective of toy libraries is really to provide early learning and the play materials that will stimulate this early learning, so that there will be a holistic development of young children. And it's wonderful when you locate a toy library in a community. It becomes a catalyst for many activities over and above just the exchange of toys. And I'll allude to that as we progress through this conversation.
Okay, so with the toy library, what are the different types of toy libraries programs that you have?
So you could set up a toy library, which is a come and play toy library. So obviously this would be a physical space that has tables and chairs and a carpet area where children can come into the toy library, spend time there for in a play session. Usually these are about 2 hours at a time, and they would then take out the toys and return home or go back to their regular ECD program. But geographical distance is often a barrier, and so setting up a go and play service is really advisable. So it's adding a vehicle to the program, putting the toys in very simplified, very top high level explanation, putting the toys into a vehicle, taking that to a site, creating a pop-up space with gazebos, and then also having members who join the toy library come and then attend a play session. Then there's the lend and play. So these don't necessarily facilitate play sessions. They simply exchange the toys as you would exchange a book. And then there's also a make and play session. So I alluded to the fact that toy libraries also upskill, that they also train, that they are change agents in terms of improving quality and making sure that play-based learning really happens. And so it's sessions are often conducted at a toy library where practitioners and even parents can make toys and take those toys home and use that. So there's a huge recycling initiative that also goes on with making of toys. And we've also done a few wonderful corporate volunteering sessions, where corporates make a whole range of toys and we then distribute that back into toy libraries. And then also there's the capacity building, so the training that around these play materials. So if a child builds a puzzle, apart from it being enjoyable and playful and fun, there's a whole list of language development, fine motor skills, developmental skills that gets unearthed. And so if you understand the power of the toys, you can actually facilitate the play so much better. So toy librarians are really great at the capacity building, and then toy libraries will also add on events. So participate in World Play Day, which happens on the 28th of May every year. So there's some initiatives that people take on, also with doing seminars and so on.
One of the points that you made that I really just want to emphasize on is the fact that you have a mobile toy library. In a lot of the rural communities, when, we were in the Drakensberg the past weekend, and you see kids walking long distances to get to schools. And so many, in rural communities, so many of these disabled kids are totally forgotten about. And because of the cultural differences and the cultural myths and beliefs that exists there, where you have children that have disabilities, but the parents don't actually let them leave the home because of fear of what the community would say, that it's witchcraft, that they have this disability. So these poor kids end up staying at home. And with having a toy library that is mobile, you're able to now reach those kids.
Definitely. So it's an inclusive environment, and when we go back to the roots of where toy libraries have actually originated from, it was started in Europe specifically for children living with disabilities and to support families of children living with disabilities. And so it really does have an inclusive environment, and it's not that you per se need a different set of toys. It's just the skill of integrating that toy and matching that with a child's abilities, because there are many abilities that sit within a child living with a disability. And we've seen the wonderful work once we discover those children, because yes, they are hidden in communities, and once we integrate them into the toy library programs and also make them part of playgroup programs and ECD programs, just how the potential that's there really does get developed and ignited. So it doesn't exclude any children of any age. Yes.
I think it's a really, really great project. I think we've touched on the librarian and what they do. I'm just cognizant of time here. And so tell us about the toy libraries in government.
Yes, so the ECD policy clearly says that the Department of Arts and Culture is responsible for setting up toy libraries, and so Scotland really plays a huge advocacy role in holding them accountable and lobbying, for more toy libraries. But you find quite a number of municipal book libraries having toy libraries, You also find toy libraries in ECD centers. So it works really well if there's an ECD center and they have space that you bolt on a toy library program onto that existing infrastructure or into community centers. We've worked with schools where we helped schools set up toy libraries as part of the school foundation phase particularly. And then also the Department of Health, where a toy library trailer is hitched to a health clinic. And as the health clinics do their primary health care, we do the pop-up sessions, and the children then get access to health, but also access to early learning.
Yes.
And obviously from that pop-up session, we then always aim to set up a play group, and if there's enough children, the community often then migrate into setting up ECD centers. And usually the mobile health clinics work in the most remote areas. And on farming communities, and so really the communities that we are very passionate about, marginalized rural communities.
Fantastic. So I'm just, when we're looking at the toy libraries and bringing communities together, how is that achieved?
So toy libraries serve children. It also serves therapists that work in a particular community. It's a support to ECD practitioners. Parents can become members of toy libraries, playgroup facilitators, as well as childcare workers who work with children in youth and childcare centers. If you're a childminder, an au pair, you can also become part of the toy library and integrate that into your care for the children, and also teachers. And so it's a wonderful community builder if one launches and sets it up in a community.
Fantastic. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. I'd like Angelique just to show some pictures from the toy libraries and from the mobile toy libraries specifically, just so that people can get an understanding of what is a mobile toy library. What does it look like?
So I can always do a little bit of a voice-over or narration of this, just briefly. So this is an example of a pop-up station, and you'll see children engaging. So this is particularly a mobile clinic that operates in Makondu, in Mpumalanga. And you'll see the vehicle that's being used. We use different kinds of vehicles. It's not just, the one type. It depends on the terrain and obviously the funding that's available. You see the toy librarians in action. Here they are popping into an early learning, an ECD center, in fact, and they then set up the play sessions. And by doing that, they're transferring skills and demonstrating to the practitioner how to set these up and engage with the children, because it really is important. So this is the Truworths one. It operates in Mamelodi in Tshwane, in Gauteng.
Okay.
And so another toy librarian. So we often have males who are interested in this profession and really want to encourage that. And I've also seen on the chats, is this just for youth? No, it's not. And so people who are looking to redirect and reskill themselves to be more employable. This is a toy library at a clinic in Harry Gwala. And so you see that toys are categorized, and here's it's hitched to the mobile clinic. And also, I guess that starts from the first picture again. I think it's just a repeat. So it gives a sense of, the engagement, the setting up, and the types of vehicles that are being used.
So when we're looking at Cotland's Ignite and Cotland's Toy Library, I really want to show how do companies make their BEE points count, especially in your environment, and the impact that it actually has on the community at large and on women who are coming into the ECD space, and even men. It's open to men as well. We don't always find a lot of men coming in, but it is open. And as you mentioned with the toy libraries, you can have men that come in and be involved in the toy library side. So when we're looking at the points that you can potentially score as an organization that is being measured under triple BEE, skills development is the first area. Because of the two programs, the ECD accredited qualification, as well as the toy library, which is an accredited skills program, both of them are accredited, which means that you can claim the spend, the 100% spend on both of these programs. So I really want to appeal to businesses to look at potentially incurring the spend with Cotland's Ignite and the Cotland Toy Libraries. You will be building our future this is really developing our kids. So, and you know, Monica mentioned we need 350,000 ECD practitioners. So the importance of the development of these individuals and to just have a huge supply of ECD practitioners in the country is vitally important. And you can score your points under skills development. Under enterprise development, because they are a training center, they also require assistance, financial assistance to run the training academy, the online training academy, which can be very costly. So you can score points by providing financial assistance under the operational costs of Kotlin's Ignite. Or why don't you look at possibly helping an existing toy library that maybe requires some assistance from, you know, from a financial point of view. When we're looking at socioeconomic development, again, it's the same scenario. You can set up a toy library either from scratch, so building the foundations, setting up the entire structure of a toy library. Alternatively, set up an ECD center which has a mobile toy library attached to it. And you know, reach out to Kotlin's. Kotlin's will be able to advise in which areas still require these ECD centers. Where do they require toy libraries? You know, and again, you can assist with operational costs of the ECD centers, as well as the toy libraries. So these are the three areas, and by investing your spend under enterprise development, skills development, and socioeconomic development, you really are contributing to building a community and really just impacting on women, children, and the community at large. So I do appeal to businesses, please. Kotlin's, there's a number of financial assistance that they do need, which is around the human resource costs, travel and accommodation. You can imagine with the toy library, there is a lot of traveling done with the toy library. The tablets that the learners need to use and the data costs, we all know how high data costs are in the country at the moment. And with everything being moved over to digital, we need to really ensure that we're equipping the learners to do the best that they can. Refreshments for obviously with your ECD centers, your toy libraries, the marketing, they've got administration costs, program development, online hosting, and the development of their own team, because they constantly have to also evolve and upskill to ensure that they're giving the best program out there. So I'd really like to appeal to businesses to assist and look at incurring the cost and making your BE points under the elements that I've mentioned. So just before we end off, we're actually doing good for time. We've got 8 minutes left. Our next talk is going to be in April. The date will be released, and what we're going to be chatting about there is we actually invited in a small business that is going to come in and show how they are actually helping communities to produce their own water. And we'll also be engaging with a training provider who is making a huge impact in the disability space. So please don't miss out. It will be on all our social media. We'll be giving the date through to everyone. If you've had to drop off the session or you would like to share this, the recording is going to be live on YouTube, and it will also be released on our social media platforms. Then if you'd like to get in contact with either one of us, our contact details I'll leave up there. I do just want to go into the chat and just see, there was a couple of questions I think posed to Kitu. Let me just go down. How does one get the documentation for signing with corporates? So for the contract part, where can I source this agreement that one would sign with corporates? So Tato, you can contact myself or Kitu. I've got that contract as well, but Kitu also will have something that can assist you and guide you in terms of that particular contract. So you can reach out to one of us. And then from Verna, there are ED funders out there who focus essentially on disbursing ED grants, and that's all. It feels as if they need to plug a hole to gain ED points. That's exactly what we were saying early on, is we have to change the narrative. We have to push companies and show them that, you know, by incurring the spend, you're getting the points, but show them the impact that they can actually have on communities, you know, in terms of their BE initiatives. Then I would like to know if there are any prescribed standards where ED funders are obliged to set up a sustainable partnership with ED beneficiaries. No, there's nothing in legislation that forces them to do that. It has to be something that comes out of their own will. But again, companies like myself and I'm an entrepreneur, that is what we're there to do, is to show companies how they can effectively implement their BEE initiatives that has a really impactful benefit to communities and to companies like yours, Verna. Then do you offer online ECD learnerships to people older, not just the youth? Due to lockdown, many adults are jobless and need to reskill themselves. I think, Monica, I can answer that. There is no restriction on the age of people that can register for the programs. So it is definitely open to everyone. Again, you're more than welcome to reach out to Monica after the session. And if you don't take the details down now, you can always reach out to me on social media or my email address if you want me to put you in contact with Monica or Kitu. But thank you, everyone. This has been a really, really informative session. And thank you to Monica and Kitu for taking the time out and having this discussion with us. It's really these discussions that will help us drive businesses to change their mindset, to not just do a tick box exercise and gain your BEE points, but to actually have a far-reaching impact on communities and our economy at large. Thank you for joining us today. It's really been an informative session, and we'll see you in April.